Welcome to In the Envelope, a podcast from Backstage, the #1 resource for actors and talent seekers. I am your host, Jack Smart, awards editor at Backstage, and I'm here to guide you through every aspect of the entertainment industry with the help of some of your favorite stars. These intimate, inspirational conversations with today's most award-worthy film, television, and theater artists provide you, dear listener, advice on how to live the creative life, personal stories of success and failure alike, and maybe, just maybe, a tantalizing glimpse in the envelope. It's been so long since you've been on the podcast. In fact, we've got it down to a science now, in fact.
I know. You guys are such professionals.
Yeah, exactly.
We have celebrity appearances and stuff from Christine every week now, which is exciting.
Exactly. Christine has had to become an audio pro.
Yes.
And now you do too. Welcome, Kasey Howe. We're starting.
Oh my gosh. Jack, it is so good to hear your voice. I mean,
So
I
good to hear
know that
yours.
I get to hear it every week on the podcast, but it's not always directed towards me, and it just makes me feel really special.
And
so
it hasn't in a while. We haven't talked on this podcast in a while, but we are overdue for a chat because our listeners need to know what's going on in our neck of the
and
woods.
so much has happened. My goodness. I mean,
much.
I think the last year we talked about this time, and
Right.
we had just come back from TIFF, and it was like
actual
a
TIFF.
normal world.
It really was.
and season and everything was like, we were all geared up for it. And this year, obviously, and we'll get into more detail, but we've, really had to shift gears and, everything from, certainly the shows themselves to, what are festivals these days and how can we make it work and how can everybody jump in and be helpful and keep things going. So it's been fun.
And those are all like ongoing questions that you and I are certainly not going to like definitively answer today. It's just like, I mean, and obviously there's no listener who doesn't know that something's up with this award season.
Yes.
But,
well, you know what? The fun thing is that I've kind of, normally award season will bridge like into 2 years, right? So we have to call it like the 2020-2021 award season. Now I've totally dropped 2020 and we can just go 2021.
You're so
I'm
isn't that
kind of
interesting?
excited about that.
Right.
Like it's just 2021, here we come. Like
that's actually so
boom.
true. Yeah. Right. Because, I would say one of the main points about this award season is just the simple fact that it is the Oscars that have been moved back to April 25.
April 25th will be the show.
And so that,
Yes.
as you and I know, and our listeners should know, the Oscars really do decide the rest of Film and Guild's award season. The Film Independent Spirit Awards, for example, are always held the day before the Oscars. Kathy Connell, who created and runs the SAG Awards, she has said on this podcast that how they decide when the SAG Awards air depends on when the Oscars will air in any given year. And then they kind of work backwards from there, right? Like it's then, okay, what's the voting period? Okay, what's the nominations announcement? Okay, what's the SAG nominations period? And as you were saying, none of that's happening in 2020. That's all happening in winter of 2021.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah, and it'll be, and I really do, I commend all of the guilds and Oscars for saying, look, we don't need to stick with what we've done. We can adjust, we can be nimble, we can figure this out, and we don't need to throw our hands in the air and say, well, forget about it. We can make this work. And just to back up a little bit, I mean, the Emmys certainly had to move the goalposts in the middle of the game. So
oh my God,
they were, and I think they really made a good example of, we can adapt, we can figure this out. We're still going to have a season. We're still going to honor all of our great content.
Totally.
And, we're going to make it interesting for your average, person out there who just loves to watch television and your critics and people who are in the industry. So the Emmy season was really interesting this year. It was so much fun. There was so much content, and I really felt like because of the situation with the pandemic and people were really watching so much TV that so many people got to have an opinion on it and participate. And, they're like, no, I know that show, no, I watched that. So it was really, I think the energy around that was really fun and engaging for people.
Yeah.
And I think that, that was really interesting for me to sort of observe. Across the board, and I think that certainly our television partners got really excited about things. And I think that, the producers of the show themselves did such a great job with, making it work and making it interesting and really set a good example. So I think that just reassured a lot of these the Oscars and even SAG, and everybody to say like, okay, we got this, we got this, we can do this. Let's push forward. Yeah, we're going to change our dates. No big deal.
Right.
We're going to make sure we can include as many films and as many television productions as possible. Let's keep this going and let's make it fun and exciting. So I think that's been, really positive to see.
Really encouraging.
Just really encouraging,
Those other shows, it reassured you and me. I mean, and I was going to ask you, like, from an ad, you are the head of ad sales at Backstage. From the ad perspective, like, how did our business or how did TV networks' Emmy business change in the year 2020? And how might does that provide clues for the upcoming Film and Guilds season?
Yeah, great question. I think that, some of the things that we saw that were interesting and really exciting were, people... their budgets had to shift because of events, right? So they had to think about different strategies, which was really interesting.
Yeah. No live events.
But yet the new live event is a virtual live event, so it's we're still doing it. We're still participating. It just looks a little different. And that learning curve, again, everybody just really jumped on things as far as figuring that out. And I think that, that was really interesting to see. And then also what was really interesting to see was the shift to, okay, how can we reach these people when they're not in their office, right? How can we get to them in different ways so that we can speak to them and campaign to them, but in a more natural way of, where are they now? So we saw a lot of content support. We saw a lot of support for this podcast, which was really great.
Yeah.
And people were ongoing. And they were just getting a little more creative. Whereas I think normally you can sort of stick with what you know and say, okay, I'm going to do this, this, and this is my formula. I think that the formula had to shift a little bit. And again, credit goes to all of those PR reps and digital and print agencies who kind of went, okay, now what, and everybody just said, nope, we're going to figure this out and let's go for it and let's go big and let's not, run scared or try and back off or, let's have fun with it.
That's the thing. It is so daunting. Like you said, they really do deserve credit. It's such a daunting task, this idea of changing the goalposts in the middle of the game. Like, it could have taken them a full year or a full season to put everything on hold and figure things out.
Sure.
And instead, the talent adapted, the PR adapted, all the advertisers. I mean, just so we know, what are the typical sort of like weapons in the arsenal of an awards campaign? Because yes, there are live events. That includes premieres of projects. That's a big one. That includes film festivals, which of course we want to talk about more. And it includes like live events that are like Q&As. And there's a lot of, I know SAG and other unions do a lot of talks where they focus on a specific aspect of the craft, like acting. That and press. I mean, what else typically happens in an awards campaign? What are we missing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, certainly a big tool are trades like us where we can really reach your voting constituency since we're all, geared up for voting. That's the same sort of thing where you're trying to reach the right group, right? And so, yes, there are tools there. That's really where we come in handy. I think that the strategies around these live events and some of the things that we launched around the slate and voiceover content and all of this different stuff, trying to reach people where they are, I think became the new strategy of what are we missing. But the fun thing was too, is that they didn't completely drop, your Q&As and your things like that. It was just, okay, how can we do them? Okay, we have this thing called Instagram Live. Let's figure that out. Okay, we have this thing called Zoom, which apparently everybody knows how to work now. So we all have to know how to work it. Yeah, let's get all the cast members on and let's do the Q&A, because that's the fun part, I think, for most people for these campaigns, is being able to talk about the project, being able to have fun with the cast members, being able to engage with the audience in real time. I think that, if you've worked on a project for so long and then it just sort of gets put out there, but you don't get to engage with the audience on it, I think that takes away. So I think that was really fun for people. I think that they've had a lot of fun with it and have been able to, also engage in ways where they probably wouldn't have, based on, say, a travel schedule, right? If I'm at TIFF and I'm doing a talk, it's only the 50, 100 people in the room. This opens it up for so many more people, which was so cool. And it was just something that, I made this analogy a couple times as we were going through the process. I said, look, we probably would have gotten to virtual Q&As and Instagram Lives and all this stuff, but we just had to do it sooner. Right? Yeah. We would have gotten there. But now this really just forced everybody. And I think we saw some of that with our launching of the slate too. It's like we've been talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. Now it's like, well,
we have every incentive to do it now.
Let's go, And so I think that was something that was really interesting too. And I think that it just helped, if you're looking for a bright side, it's helped. Exactly. It helped sort of get people over that last little hump of, okay, is content really going to be helpful, and can we do something virtually and have it not be, and still have it live up to a standard that we're all accustomed to, and we want to keep it that way. So, I think that was really interesting. But I think those are, those core elements of a campaign, I think stay. I just think that the look of them changes a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like the magic of technology can transcend geography. Yeah. Which, of course, makes me think about film festivals. So the thing about film festivals that, of course, we've been thinking about for months is like they really cannot be underestimated in terms of their importance, really just the core importance to the filmmaking industry itself. Like, you've made a film and you want distribution, or maybe you even have distribution and you want to get it out there. You want to, like, as you say, connect it to the correct audience, connect it to as many audience members as possible. Film festivals are a really, really key way of doing that. And like a lot of what you just said about the elements of an awards campaign, those apply to film festivals. And so TIFF and New York Film Festival and all of those European festivals, I mean, everyone should be commended for also rolling with the punches and transitioning to virtual. I do think, of course, it's impossible to predict how, for example, watching a film, you and I have watched films. I mean, you and I, quote unquote, attended TIFF, right?
Yes. Yes, we did. We were in attendance.
We were in attendance, but that meant we saw none of those films in a packed theater full of like excitement and full of like, oh, the stars are here. They're going to be in a red carpet event. We're going to go to a party afterward. None of that is happening. So I wonder how this film award season will be affected by the fact that everyone voting, everyone critiquing, everyone involved in the filmmaking industry this year is seeing the films on their laptop, or maybe they can transport it onto their big screen in their living room, but it is not the same. And I wonder if that kind of shifts the quality of film that gets recognition, or which films are more valued in this crazy time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's a really great point. I think that it's, a couple things that just sort of pop to mind is, I think that we are getting more used to viewing things on different screens and being able to recognize and appreciate film across the board. I do think that there is, there's always going to be an element of, and we even talked about this, I think, last year. There's always that like theaters versus not theaters versus all that kind of stuff. And it's like
the Netflix effect.
Sure. And I think that, I think that there are pros and cons to both. I hate to sort of, be wishy-washy about it. But look, there's nothing that will replace sitting in a theater with other people and all laughing at the same time. There just won't. That's really special. But I think that, again, it does a couple things that I think that the opening of the film festivals virtually does open it up to more eyes. So you can maybe reach a distribution company that maybe wouldn't normally go to TIFF or wouldn't be looking for that film or something to that effect. I think that also, you know, there's that pro, but I think that there also is a bit of, you know, when you walk out of TIFF, or at least in years past, when by the time TIFF and New York Film Festival came around, you sort of had a landscape of film and of the film, what the race was going to look like. It doesn't always point that way, but you get a sense, right? Definitely. I think that this year, my sense of sort of talking to other people is that we're all a little, we don't have that clear landscape yet, you know? And I think that also has something to do less with the festivals and what they did, because I think they did a great job of rolling out these films and getting as many as possible without all the bells and whistles that people want when they bring their film to a festival. But I think that, so I think it's more of a function of the calendar change than it is the festivals themselves. Yeah. If the festivals had been able to, say, push their timeline back or shift, you know, maybe that changes things. But I just think that's a function of timing, less about the festivals or the quality of films at the festivals. So,
right. Yeah. I mean, looking at specifically last year, like this year is, of course, unusual, but even just compared to last year was an unusually short film award season.
Very true.
And it was actually, I mean, it was actually kind of a hassle. It was chaotic in a different way because everyone was crammed into scheduling all of those award shows in January and February. And I think you're right that in a season like that, the quote unquote frontrunners and the state of the race it has to be clarified a lot sooner. Whereas this year, it's like the Oscars aren't until April.
All the time in the world. Yeah.
All the time in the world to campaign.
And it's a really, you know, you bring up a good point, Jack, because look, we're saying, oh my gosh, you know, the dates changed and blah, blah, blah. But you know what? The dates change every year. They shift a little bit, you know, it's you know, last year it was super quick. And the year prior to that, I think it was long. And it was, you know, so I think that we get into a sense of, you know, we may be in a mode now where everybody's like, oh my gosh, everything's changing and shifting and, you know, what's happening? But it's like, well, you know, each season is a little bit different, you know, and so I think that's interesting.
And side note, like the date of the Oscars is also, correct me if I'm wrong, it's determined by things like what the network that's airing the Oscars, like if they have to accommodate for the Olympics or football. Like
exactly. Yep. Absolutely.
Which is just funny.
Absolutely. You know, it's funny because your point last year about everybody had to sort of cram in all these shows, you know, that is absolutely a factor. There are only so many Sundays to do these award shows, at least the televised ones. And I think that, you know, it gets tricky with all the other things happening. So, you know, having a little bit of space and distance from some of this might give it a little extra boost. Who knows? You know, it'll be an interesting experiment in and of itself. So
that is so true. And yet at the same time, there's also this element of like the other thing that is causing more uncertainty in this film award season is just the simple fact that so many of these movies are getting delayed.
Right.
I'm reading now from a list of movies that would have premiered in 2020 for 2021 Oscar consideration and are now definitely only in contention for 2022 Oscars. Right. That includes The French Dispatch, the Wes Anderson movie, In the Heights and West Side Story, both those big budget musicals. A Quiet Place Part 2 is supposed to come out in March of 2020. It is so delayed.
Oh my goodness.
And you've got Dune and a lot of the Marvel movies. And then the most recent one that was just announced is Respect. The Jennifer Hudson, Aretha Franklin movie is, we all assumed it was happening this year and it's not. So stuff like that. I mean, Kasey and I have been prepping for this film award season for weeks now. And as we keep going, it's like, oh, so this one's not a contender anymore. Oh, got it. Oh.
Right.
And that's actually kind of true on the TV side too. We're seeing delays and complications there. So that's just another chaotic element.
It sure is. It sure is. And I think that will be the nature of things for a little bit as we sort of stop, you know, openings and figuring out what can be done with
it's a process.
Productions that are half done or, you know, mostly done or not even started yet. I was speaking the other night with someone who was just in love with this one TV show, and she said, when is it coming back? When is it coming back? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think they started in anything before everything got shut down. So they have a full season to shoot. It's going to take some time, guys.
Yeah.
So I think that, but we can't really boohoo ourselves. We have so much content to watch. We'll be just fine.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I think that'll be the interesting thing to see, sort of what films, do end up sticking to their timelines, which films need to move for whatever reason that might be. There are tons of reasons that could occur.
Right.
And I think, it also reminds me a little bit of a season, I believe it was 2 or 3 seasons ago, where there were a lot of sort of smaller budget indie films that really got pushed to the front because either the bigger budget films weren't awardsy enough, for lack of a better term, or they got changed, or they got moved, or the releases were off, or something. So you ended up with a lot of smaller budget indie films that were very artsy and unique in their own way. And that may be more of a film season that we're looking at.
Absolutely.
Versus, say, the last couple years where we've seen, these big budget films that have been contenders from these big studios. And it just, every few years things shift and studios come together, studios get broken apart.
There's that
you
too.
rework this, you rework that. That happens, I think, with any industry every, few years. So each season looks a little bit different.
It's so true. It really is true that each year the qualities of what we consider a front runner just change. I mean,
sure,
if it speaks to the current political moment or what we're in the mood for. And I do think it's a safe prediction to say that this year, first of all, those contenders and the pool of options, but also, what we want to watch is maybe more on the smaller, more intimate, maybe quieter. I don't know. I mean, escapism is a theme I keep coming back to in this crazy pandemic of what do I consider escapist? What do I want to escape into? What do I consider good distraction?
Right.
I don't know.
Which one can I watch and not feel bad that I watched that? And then
totally.
one that I watch that I can still have fun watching, So I think that's...
Those affect voters.
And we've talked a lot about the film season. It's certainly coming off of this Emmy season. I mean, television is one that, will not be denied. And I think
ongoing.
That this SAG and Globe season will be very interesting. Again, just from the sheer volume of content.
Yeah. Everyone's watching so much TV. Yeah.
Yeah. And what got recognized, I think, will carry over a bit into the following, into the, this 2021 season.
Yeah.
But I think that will be interesting to see. And then depending on how the, not to get ahead of ourselves, but depending on how that calendar goes, will that run right back into Emmys of 2021? So, television is something that is ongoing, and they're just, I feel like over the past, certainly, 4 or 5 years, but even over the last year, there have been some newcomers to television that have made really smart decisions and taken a lot of risks and said, no, we're going to go with this edgy content. We're going to go with this, we'll spend our money on this and we'll get something that's really great. And I think that that's a unique opportunity for television as well from that end. So
the TV landscape is very amenable to risks these days. It's paid off with Emmys. And as you say, it is so year round. This year, I felt like there was no lull at all. After the Emmys, it was immediately into, well, who are we campaigning for Globes? What's going on for SAG TV?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that, it's really great for those shows too. I think that sometimes, for a long time, those shows that cover both TV and film, TV felt like, the black swan a little bit of, okay, we're here too,
Yes.
And now I think that they have really, really top talent, and it's really an interesting
prestige factor.
Yeah, and a really interesting landscape, and they're just the medium of even a limited series, I think, and the prestige that's come with that over the last 2 or 3 years has opened up a lot of opportunities for what would be, filmmakers to branch into television, and I think that's
There's
interesting.
a blending of the two mediums, I would say.
Mm-hmm. and it just opens up so many opportunities for different storytelling, right? And,
Absolutely.
And different stories to get picked up and adopted and turned into, whether it's a limited series or a movie or whatever.
Yes, totally. Well, going off of that, do you have like just to get into really subjective territory here, do you have like a favorite 2020 film you've seen so far, and also maybe a 2020 series?
Oh boy. I don't think I'm allowed to choose because last year I was so wrong, but I still stand by my choice.
Well, it's favorite. I mean, you can pick your favorite, and if that ends up winning Best Picture, then great.
I think that I really don't want to say for film yet because I don't feel like I've seen enough.
Okay.
I definitely saw some really interesting stuff at TIFF that jumped out.
Yeah.
That, a couple of them don't have distributors yet, I don't believe.
No,
but that was so that'll be really
Concrete
interesting.
Cowboy that was a distributor
that
yet.
was what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
I'm like,
great.
I kind of really liked that.
Because you like horses.
Well, that's probably very true. Actually, I'm probably entirely biased and don't remember anything else of that film except for all the horses. So that's highly likely, Jack.
Yeah.
But I think that that was very interesting, and I think I think we have some fun months ahead of us for what's going to get released. And I think that'll be really interesting to see who goes with what. I think that, Amazon has some really interesting stuff. I think Netflix has some interesting stuff. I think that, for sure the streamers made some really big moves during this time, and they're really going for it. So kudos to them, and no one can say that they're not trying. So
absolutely,
it'll be really interesting, I think, to see this year of, with the changes in everything from culture to, how we're watching and what we're watching and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. I think that will be really fun to watch,
Absolutely. I mean, whatever is considered a contender or the contender, for the ultimate Best Picture prize, like it's going to be a fascinating window into this crazy time. Like historically, it will be remembered as like, that is emblematic of this element of the chaos of 2020,
So true.
I think that I think my favorite film so far of 2020 is, I'm just going to go out on a limb and just say it's Nomadland.
Okay.
Which is the story of Frances McDormand playing, but it's almost documentary stuff. Chloe Zhao made it like as if it's a documentary. It's so beautiful. About this real life culture of people who live out of their vans and kind of in the middle of nowhere, they live this nomadic life. For whatever reason, that spoke to me, and it speaks to 2020. Like it speaks to isolation and freedom and the lack of freedom and economic woes. There's a lot to connect there. And of course, it was made before a pandemic affected everything. So that's just one example,
Absolutely. I think that's always the fun thing about any award season is you get this landscape and you get this idea of what's going to happen. Even I think last year after TIFF, it was, okay, here are top contenders. Here's what we think. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's like the whole, this whole thing that happened. So I think that, and the whole thing that happened, I just mean how Parasite took off, right? And how it just didn't lose momentum and it was unstoppable.
And how unpredictable that was.
Yes. So I think that, that happens. And then I think with, again, this television will not be denied thing, I think that the television, the teams just are so good that they always sort of have a little something extra up their sleeve, and to drop something like that now, I'm like, oh, you got me.
Yeah, no, that's so
exciting.
It's
always, you kind of never know what's coming, and that's always a really fun part too.
That is part of the fun of an award show, of an awards race.
Yes, totally. Yes.
Well said.
Where you can have it all laid out, and then something really unique or special or different or whatever comes along, and you go, oh, what about that one?
We don't want things to be predictable.
No.
If anything, this year is great because there are very few known factors at play here. So.
Yes. As I've liked to start saying, people will ask, so what do you think is going to happen this? And I said, well, did you bring your crystal ball today? Because that's the only way we're going to know.
Well, oh my gosh. Well, what a perfect note to end on, because that really is fitting. Like you and I think you and I just did a little bit of looking into the crystal ball, but it is true that we can't possibly predict anything that's going to happen in the next 6 months, considering the last 6 months, you know?
Correct. I think that's a fair assessment. I think that we're confident that there will be a very fun and energetic SAG, Globes, Oscar season.
Yeah.
I'm confident for that. I think that it'll be fun to watch how everything unfolds. You know, over
I am looking forward to it.
And over the holidays and over, you know, that whole season is normally, you know, heads down and let's
working
get it
on Thanksgiving is what Backstage usually has to do, and we don't this year. It's true.
So it'll just be interesting because I think I think everybody, you know, will get to pause and enjoy that time and be able to see different films and watch different shows in a different setting, you know, in a different mood than we may normally be in.
That's so true. Yeah.
So.
What a great optimistic note to end on.
It should be. I always
otherwise
like to,
pessimistic year. Yeah.
No. We have to figure out a way to find the brightness and
absolutely,
and find that somewhere. So
absolutely,
I like it.
Well, thank you, Kate. This was great. Oh my gosh.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you. I'm gonna pack up my crystal ball and go now.
That's perfect. And then
I need
listeners,
some scarves or something.
Yeah, we have to stargaze. We need to look at our horoscopes for upcoming. Listeners, stick around to hear from Christine McKenna-Torella, our casting insider. And Kasey, thank you so much for joining us. I hope that's everything we have to cover. I mean, we can have you back on in a couple months if the rules of the game completely change again. We have to
We're on our
dive
toes.
deep on
We're
that.
on our toes.
Exactly.
But yes, Jack, thank you for having me. It's always so great to chat with you. And
yes.
And hello to all of our wonderful listeners. We love you. And please let us know if you want to hear about anything or if we can help with anything.
Please reach out.
Yes, please reach out. Yes,
you know, it's funny you say that. Oriella St. Louis, our lovely, the person who reads the credits, you'll hear, who listeners hear in every episode. She does say,
Oriella.
Yeah, she does say, you know, reach out and tell us who you would like to interview next. And I would just like to side note here and say, I just got a lovely message on LinkedIn from somebody who just wanted to say they were a fan of the podcast. And they also made a request for an actor for us to interview. And I think I'm not going to say who it is in case I can't deliver on that.
I love it. Oh my gosh, that's so much fun, you guys.
That's exactly what we want. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. No, reach out to us on, you know, social media or
yes,
LinkedIn,
please.
Or, you know, even via email. And, you know, please do let us know if there's a topic you want us to cover or a person. And we will make that outreach and see what we can come up with for you.
Yeah, perfect. Oh my God. Kasey, okay. Thank you so much. This is great.
Thank you.
And now it's time to hear from Christine McKenna-Torella, our Backstage casting insider. I will let her take it away.
Hi guys, Christine McKenna-Torella here. Today I want to discuss networking. Networking right now can be challenging because a lot of casting offices are closed or their projects are on hold, and talent managers and agents are furloughed. People have been sick, stuck at home, and it's an election year. There is a lot going on. The first thing to remember right now is that we are all people experiencing the challenges you are. So acting like a pandemic is not happening during an election year, it's not a good idea. I would advise, instead of using a playbook that's pre-pandemic, this is the perfect time to take a step back, do research, and if the possibility presents itself, connect authentically with people you'd love to work with. So where do you start? Make a list of the people you want to connect with post-COVID. A great place to start is our call sheet, which Backstage users get included with their subscription. The call sheet is updated regularly to reflect staff projects and the staff that are in those offices, and more importantly, the office's policy on getting in touch with them. Now again, I emphasize, I don't think that unsolicited cold contact will be very effective right now, but this is a great exercise in knowing the business. You should gather a list of your dream work colleagues. Secondly, be in the room where it happens. A bit cheesy, I know, but you'll remember it. And what I mean by that is that you have to network, and it's still possible. Even online, you can attend industry events such as Q&As, panels, festivals, screenings, educational workshops. I'd argue that some casting directors are more accessible now on that type of platform than ever before. And you can follow them, get their advice about the shows that they work on, understand what they are looking for in the actors they cast. It is a great opportunity, and most of it's been free. Take a look at this slate. We had a lot of really great casting directors from March onwards come on and do some really fab things. Most of them were archived on our YouTube channel, so go over to Backstage on YouTube. Be social savvy. Follow all the casting offices and talent agencies that you're interested in. If you want to befriend a casting professional or director or producer on social media, i.e. Facebook or Instagram, then your profile should be a mix of professional meets personal, i.e. market yourself, emphasis on professional. Show yourself working on auditions, in rehearsal, supporting other people making art. Otherwise, don't share it. My pet peeve is when an actor befriends me on social media and then posts either super personal stuff or has a tendency to write reviews of the shows they've seen. If you've listened to some of the other segments that I've done, you'll know that I have very little time for armchair critics. As Roosevelt said, if you're not in the arena with me, the criticism does not count. If you want to make your profile private, you should. Link your social media to your professional website, your Backstage profile, etc. Even if I can't look at your posts, I should be able to Google you and find you on Facebook or whatever. And a tool like a Linktree will get all your links for your websites in one place. Let's talk about LinkedIn. I think that's a separate social media base because, of course, it's meant for professionals. It's a good place to do research on professionals in entertainment. But if you want to connect with a stranger, add a personal note of value. Why should this person connect with you if they haven't met you? I always add notes. Recently, I've asked a number of our Backstage freelance writers to connect on LinkedIn, people that have admired the articles that they've written. And when I do that, I tell them a little bit about myself in the note, and I reference the article that I really enjoyed reading, and that's why I want to connect with them, and I make that clear. Everyone has said yes so far. Add value. If you're following the casting professional or agent that you're interested in working with, look at what they're posting. Maybe you aren't right for a casting they post, but can you share it? Support their posts if you agree with them. And what are their interests inside and outside the business? Can you connect with them over a non-entertainment something or other? I have a number of actors that I now consider friends because we share a love of running or cycling or Irish theatre. The list goes on. Trust me, I know the difference between an actor that wants me to do something for their careers versus someone who actually has a genuine interest in having a friendship with me. Remember to follow up, probably the most important part of any type of networking. A quick thank you card or note goes a long way. It could be a simple thank you for the panel you held, it was super helpful, or thank you for the audition opportunity, or thanks for chatting with me. And this episode was all about award season. If you see a show that a casting director gets nominated on or wins something on, that's a great reason to connect. A simple congratulations. Keep it in a professional space. Never cold call an office or a professional. No one likes that. And if I haven't worked with you, I think social media direct messages are too personal, but that's just my preference. Head over to our channel on YouTube. Melanie Ferchetti did a great workshop on this topic. She has great additional ideas and tips and strategies on how actors can continue to market themselves during COVID-19. Finally, on to the castings of this week. So 3 cool projects. One is British. You know, I'm always liking to highlight our actor community and our creator community over there too. So let's start with the British project. Very cool. A pilot for a TV series shooting in the UK, seeking a British talent Production will be early 2021. They're looking for a female teenager with an authentic London accent for a lead role. It needs to be London accent, not Essex, not Cockney. I appreciate that. You know I love my remote baking opportunities. Remote baking show seeking professional, trained and talented vegan home bakers for a baking series that will be filmed in your kitchen. And finally, a fruit beer commercial that is casting a diverse group of people, roughly between 27 and 35, must be legally 25 to participate, seeking talent based in New York. That's all I have for this week. Head over to Backstage for more casting calls. I'm Christine McKenna-Torella. Have a beautiful week.
In the Envelope is recorded at Lotus Productions and Hyperbolic Audio in New York City, and Soundbox LA, Mark Grouse Studios, and Buzzies in Los Angeles. Thanks as always to our producer extraordinaire, Jamie Muffett, and to the team at Backstage, Samantha Sherlock, Mark Stinson, Caitlin Watkins, and of course, Kasey Howe. Visit Backstage.com, and don't forget, you can subscribe to Backstage by using the code ENVELOPE at checkout for a free trial. That's right, 100% free. For more exclusive content, join us on Facebook and Twitter at In the Envelope, and subscribe, share, and leave a comment. Who would you like us to interview next? Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time for another glimpse in the envelope.